I've never told anyone this until now. For years, I hid my anxiety and depression behind smiles, laughter, and the appearance of being fine. Every night, my mind raced, my heart felt heavy, and I was trapped inside a silence no one could see or understand. I carried fear, shame, and exhaustion as if they were permanent companions. Sharing this story is terrifying, but I realized that hiding it only deepened the loneliness. Speaking my truth is the first step toward freedom, connection, and hope. I want anyone watching to know that even in fear, courage can emerge, and even in the darkest moments, you are not alone. Life is messy, emotions are real, and vulnerability is a form of strength. This is the beginning of my journey, my truth, and my courage finally spoken aloud. From a young age, I always felt different, anxious, and somehow on the outside of the world around me. The noise of life, the constant chatter of classmates, the demands of school, the expectations of family, often felt overwhelming. Even as a child, I learned to hide my feelings, to put on a mask of normalcy and compliance because showing emotion felt dangerous, risky, or wrong. I smiled when I was scared, laughed when I wanted to cry, and nodded along when my inner self wanted to run away, disappear, or simply be left alone. I quickly realized that the world didn't accommodate people like me, sensitive, introspective, and prone to anxiety, and so I learned to survive by pretending. The internal storm I carried was invisible to everyone else. Constant racing thoughts, relentless worry, fear of judgment, and a deep, unspoken longing for understanding followed me everywhere. Even when surrounded by people who cared, I felt alone. My early experiences planted seeds of fear and self-doubt that would follow me for years, teaching me that vulnerability was dangerous and that showing my true self could only bring pain. Yet beneath this mask, a small, quiet voice persisted, whispering that one day I might find a way to navigate the storm within me and perhaps even share this story with the world. I would lie awake at night, listening to the silence and imagining different scenarios. Did I do enough today? Would anyone notice how heavy my thoughts were? Would I ever feel truly seen? These questions became my nightly companions. I longed for connection and empathy, but I had no tools to express or process the intensity of my feelings. The years passed, and I became skilled at hiding my anxiety and depression, performing daily life with a level of precision that exhausted me. But even in this carefully constructed life of appearances, I began noticing patterns, moments when I withdrew, when I overthought, when fear controlled my choices. These moments taught me early lessons about resilience, patience, and the need to understand myself. Though I didn't know it then, these lessons would eventually guide me through the much deeper challenges that lay ahead. As I transitioned into my teenage years, the anxiety and depression I had hidden for so long began to intensify. The storm inside me became impossible to ignore. Panic attacks, sleepless nights, paralyzing self-doubt, and intrusive thoughts became part of my daily existence. I felt invisible even among friends and family, convinced that expressing my struggles would make me weak or a burden. The world seemed to move faster than I could keep up with, and I constantly questioned whether I was capable of meeting its expectations. Each day felt like a test I was destined to fail, and the weight of my mind became nearly unbearable. There were days when I could barely leave my bed. Every task felt monumental. Every interaction felt like a performance. Yet, amidst this darkness, small sparks of clarity appeared, fleeting but transformative. I realized that hiding my truth amplified the suffering, and though speaking out was terrifying, it was necessary. These turning points, subtle and gradual, became the foundation of resilience. A kind word, a tiny victory, or even just the act of noticing my emotions without judgment became moments of hope. I began to see that vulnerability was not weakness, but a courageous act that allowed me to begin confronting the realities of my inner life. Over time, these realizations reshaped my relationship with myself. I understood that surviving was not enough. I needed to engage with my fears, learn from them, and find strategies to cope. Facing my mind, though terrifying, became an essential step toward healing. I slowly began experimenting with small acts of bravery, sharing feelings in writing, cautiously opening up to someone I trusted, or practicing self-compassion in moments of despair. These steps, though tiny at first, eventually became significant milestones. They taught me that the journey through anxiety and depression is not linear, that setbacks are natural, and that persistence, however incremental, is a form of courage in itself. At a certain point, I realized that surviving each day was no longer enough. I needed guidance, tools, and support to navigate the overwhelming intensity of my emotions. I began exploring therapy, journaling, mindfulness exercises, and literature on mental health. Each attempt was uncomfortable and often painful, as I was forced to confront memories, fears, and beliefs I had long avoided. Therapy sessions brought difficult emotions to the surface, forcing me to question patterns I had held for years. Journaling revealed thoughts I had never expressed aloud, thoughts I had buried deep inside. Mindfulness practices allowed me to notice patterns in my anxiety and depression without judgment, and slowly I began to see my mind not as a prison, but as a landscape to navigate, understand, and heal. Over time, these practices became a lifeline. I learned to validate my emotions instead of dismissing them, to listen to my inner voice rather than constantly fight it, and to accept imperfection as part of being human. I began to recognize the difference between merely surviving and truly engaging with life, despite fear. Small victories, like expressing a difficult feeling in writing, noticing a moment of peace amidst chaos, or speaking openly with a therapist, became milestones of growth. I discovered that acknowledging my struggles and seeking help were not acts of weakness, but acts of profound courage. Sharing my story became a pivotal part of this journey. By speaking my truth, I reclaimed my voice and normalized vulnerability, not only for myself, but for anyone who might be struggling silently. I realized that growth often begins with discomfort, and healing emerges through honesty, reflection, and connection. Each moment of openness, each small act of bravery, built momentum. I started to see a vision of myself not defined by anxiety or depression, but as someone resilient, self-aware, and capable of creating meaning even in the darkest experiences. I learned that self-discovery is ongoing, that the journey is non-linear, and that embracing every part of my story, the pain, the fear, the hope, was essential to reclaiming my life and purpose. Reflecting on this journey, I now understand that anxiety and depression are not failures or flaws. They are deeply human experiences, signals from our minds and bodies that demand attention, care, and empathy. They remind us that emotional life is complex and that self-compassion is essential. Vulnerability, which once terrified me, has become one of my greatest sources of strength. Healing is not linear. It is messy, unpredictable, and deeply personal. There are days of progress, days of setbacks, moments of despair, and moments of profound insight, but each of these experiences contributes to growth, understanding, and resilience. I have learned that our struggles do not define us. How we respond to them, how we engage with them, does. Embracing discomfort, speaking our truth, and allowing ourselves to be seen creates opportunities for empathy, connection, and healing, not only for ourselves, but for others. It is okay to feel pain. It is okay to struggle. It is okay to seek help. Life is not about pretending everything is fine. It is about embracing authenticity, learning from adversity, and finding light even in darkness. Through sharing my story, I have discovered the profound power of human resilience. Even when the world feels isolating, acknowledging our inner battles and connecting with others fosters empathy, understanding, and hope. Every challenge, every moment of vulnerability, every step toward honesty becomes a teacher, a lesson, and a declaration of strength. By embracing emotions fully and courageously, we reclaim agency over our lives, navigate our fears, and cultivate meaning in even the most difficult circumstances. This journey has shown me that growth, healing, and transformation are possible, and that the act of sharing our experiences can inspire, guide, and comfort others who are struggling silently. I've realized that our stories are not just personal, they are universal. They are threads connecting all of us through shared humanity, empathy, and understanding. If my story resonates with you, I want you to know this: you are not alone. Your feelings are valid, your struggles are real, and your experiences matter. Speaking your truth, seeking support, and connecting with others who understand are acts of courage, healing, and empowerment. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is taking action despite it. By opening up, we give ourselves the chance to reclaim our voice, find understanding, and inspire empathy and hope in others. Life is not meant to be faced in silence. Connection, vulnerability, and honesty are essential to growth. Each step toward openness, no matter how small, expressing emotions, reaching out for help, or sharing your story, has the potential to transform not only your life, but also the lives of those around you. Vulnerability is not weakness. Strength is not the absence of fear. Every moment of courage is a step toward authenticity, a declaration that we are worthy of care, understanding, and love. Healing is possible. Resilience is possible. Living fully and truthfully is possible. By sharing our stories, embracing honesty, and connecting with others, we can find light even in the darkest moments, cultivate empathy, and inspire growth. We can transform pain into understanding, fear into strength, and silence into connection. By choosing to be seen and heard, we not only heal ourselves, but we create a ripple effect of hope, authenticity, and empowerment for the world around us. The power of storytelling lies in this shared humanity, the courage to be real, the choice to connect, and the ability to inspire change in ourselves and others through honesty, empathy, and love. If my story touched you, consider sharing your own journey in the comments. Your words could help someone feel less alone today. And if you want more stories of courage, resilience, and hope, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You never know who your story might inspire next. Together, we can create a community where vulnerability is strength and honesty is healing.